How's everyone doing? Today I'll be reviewing the Maniac remake starring Elijah Wood, and as soon as I saw Alexandre Aja's name pop up in the very beginning of the movie, I knew I was in for a very disturbing and gory film, as he's one of the writers and producers of the film. It was also great to see William Lustig as a producer on here too. And the Maniac remake is directed by Franck, who also worked with Alexandre Aja on P2 and High Tension, and it's great to see them together again with this Maniac remake. If you've seen the Maniac remake, definitely let me know what you think of it. Maniac is shot from the POV style, which really works well here because the majority of the film you see it from the perspective of this crazed, stalking serial killer. And I really like how they integrated today's technology for this remake with using the online dating to meet women and to basically, stalk and murder them as well. And 6 minutes into the film, I was blown away. I was just, wow, that was so awesome and unexpected, and that sets the tone for the movie, and it's just something that will take your breath away, essentially. Elijah Wood plays Frank, an introverted and shy owner of a mannequin restoration store, and he's constantly having these migraines, which he's popping pills for all the time. And he's having hallucinations of his recently deceased mother from his childhood that's really traumatic. And oh yeah, he's a psychotic stalking serial killer as well, killing all these different women and scalping them. And along the way, he meets a photographer named Anna, who's just simply beautiful and breathtaking, and she takes an interest in him and his mannequins, and she wants to use the mannequins for her upcoming show. And he feels like there's a real connection there, and is she going to be the one to kind of save him and kind of, change everything for him? Or is he going to continue his crazy, psychotic rampage of killing women and stalking them and scalping them? And every time he gets close to becoming sexual with a woman, he ends up killing them in a very gruesome manner and then scalping them. The scenes where he's driving through the city in his van and stalking these women are almost as unsettling as the gore in the film. It's really just unnerving to watch, and just you feel like you're in the van with him, and it's just really creepy. I really appreciate a lot of the psychological elements here, like him being a restorer of the mannequins. That really plays into it, and the fact that you can only see him in certain parts of the film, like see his actual face. The majority is shot in that POV perspective. Like you can see him in different photographs and security cameras and mirrors and things like that. That all really works well for the psychological aspect, especially in some of the scenes where in the photograph he's behind the metal cage for the store, and in the security camera again he's behind a metal cage, and that kind of really plays into the trapped psychological aspect. You can tell a lot of thought really went into this film, especially again from that psychological aspect, and it really shows. Top-notch gore, and I really love the visceral feel of this film, and I actually really appreciate the fact that the lead character is barely on screen. Elijah Wood, you see him maybe about 20% of the movie. And I really love what they do with the character of Anna. It really kind of toys with your emotions, and you can kind of understand the way that Frank feels, how surprised he feels, and his different range of emotions towards her. This updated version of Maniac definitely leaves you with more of a Psycho and Taxi Driver feel. Again, the Psycho aspect with all the different mommy issues, a la Norman Bates, and there's a kind of a curtain scene, a knife through the curtain scene, a la paying homage to Psycho as well, which really works. They stay true to the original, but really make it their own. The Maniac remake is one of the more stylistic horror films I've seen in recent memory. The scalping scenes are some of the most gruesome scalping scenes I've ever seen, hands down. Definitely cringe-worthy. And then especially afterwards as well, where he's putting the scalps on the mannequins, and the scalps are all bloody and congealed, and makes this kind of sound, the congealed sound. Oh, ugh. And the sound of the flies on the rotting flesh of the scalps is just a constant reminder of the gruesome events, especially when Frank's just casually laying in bed, watching TV next to the mannequin with the scalp on top of the mannequin head and the rotting flesh and the flies. It's just really grotesque. In the flashback scenes where Frank was a child and he's watching his mother do drugs and have sex with multiple guys is truly tragic and a clear catalyst of his issues with women. Now, the whole time I was watching this, I was wondering what they were going to do with the subway scene, how they were going to approach that. Well, they copped out on that scene, and that was one of my favorite scenes from the original Maniac. Absolutely love that one. But instead, they opted for a concrete jungle, big city approach, where he chases a woman out of the subway into a parking lot, and he ends up, killing her. And then there's a really cool scene where he looks up at the big skyscraper in the dark, and then it just pans back down. I thought that scene was just excellent. Again, it's a scene where they make it their own, essentially. They're paying homage to the original, but they turn it around and they kind of bring something very visceral and very visual. And the description that Lucie gives of what she thought Frank would really look like kind of sounds like Joe Spinell from the original Maniac. And I love the Silence of the Lambs music that Lucie puts on. It really reinforces the creepy vibe. There's lots of little nuances and homages all throughout the film. Like I said before, Psycho, Taxi Driver, and again, Silence of the Lambs. And in the theater, they're watching The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. So much of that really adds to this. And, you know, it's an appreciation of the horror genre. And in the first Maniac film, the original, the part that I didn't like about the movie was the psychological mommy aspect. But in this version, they did an excellent job with that aspect. I really appreciated it. They stayed true to the original Maniac in a lot of aspects and obviously took the time to pay homage to it, but they made it their own and put a modern, gory flair on it, and also put a little bit of an artistic, stylistic vibe to it. Under Frank's seemingly harmlessness and look of normalcy lies a psychotic on the edge of break every passing second. Elijah Woods offers a great mixture of creepiness with baby face, which again really works well for the psychological aspect of this film. Unlike Joe Spinell's physical appearance in the original Maniac, Elijah Woods' physical appearance really works well here, and I think it really works for today's society of what they think a serial killer would look like. You know, kind of bullied and kind of unassuming and just kind of meek and meager, waiting to lash out. From the onset, Maniac has fantastic cinematography and score by Rob, and it kind of reminds me of the movie Drive in both of those aspects. The score has that kind of synthesizer usage, and the cinematography and establishing shots of the city, especially at nighttime, definitely reminds me of Drive. Like I said before, the film is very stylistic, and it definitely has an artistic feel to it that the horror genre really isn't well known for, and it kind of elevates this film. The score by Rob is another part of this film's huge success. It almost feels like the score and then the city scape is like a character in itself. The score is so eerie all throughout, really complements the film, as does the driving sequences where Frank's driving in his van at nighttime through the city. A lot of those shots really work for the film. Mannequins always creep me out, and they are definitely effectively creepy in this one, and Frank is surrounded by mannequins in his job and also in his bedroom. And he's constantly putting the scalps, the bloody scalps on top of them and talking to them and fantasizing about them. There's a fair amount of nudity in Maniac, and all the women are breathtakingly beautiful, especially the lead, Anna, and they really work well for Frank's object of desire and obsession. The scene in the dance studio is absolutely beautiful, but you know something violent is about to happen, which has you on the edge of your seat throughout the whole film, really. The Maniac remake is definitely an eerie, brutal, and disturbing film, and not for the faint of heart. It's a more polished version of the original grimy, scummy slasher, yet this remake is also very dirty and depraved. The Maniac remake has a fantastic combination of in-your-face gore and psychological horror, and they both work very well here. I'm not a big Elijah Woods fan at all. I felt he's been miscast in past movies, and when I first heard the casting of him being in this movie as Frank, I wasn't sure about it at all, but I do think he did a great job physically in his performance as Frank, but I do have one criticism, that's his voice. His voice is very whining and annoying. It's just, I do applaud him for taking this role, especially given his popularity in the movies that he's been in previously. It's a far departure from Lord of the Rings, and it's certainly more disturbing than his role in Sin City. And like I said, physically he did a much better job than I was expecting, and you can tell he put true dedication into this film, but his voice still annoyed me. Thankfully this wasn't a dialogue-heavy film though. And the voice thing is really a minor criticism, and it actually does fit his character for the film. Somebody that's kind of, you know, introverted and kind of traumatized, so he could have a whiny voice, and it kind of looks like he'd have a whiny voice as well. And the voice thing might not bother everybody, and it wasn't all throughout the movie. It's just a couple scenes that really stand out to me as kind of a little bit whiny. And while I'm nitpicking, one more minor criticism I have for the Maniac remake is my two favorite scenes in the original Maniac were not in the remake. And I was kind of expecting one of the scenes, especially since they were in that scene and then they just took it completely out of there. I was kind of disappointed in that aspect. It kind of felt like a cop-out, but they kind of, you know, made it their own and made it kind of more updated. I was honestly really shocked by this remake. I wasn't expecting much from it. I was actually expecting to just really not like it at all. I wasn't thrilled about the cast going in. But honestly, I think that the Maniac remake is a modern horror masterpiece. I haven't been this excited about a horror film in a long time. I'm still on that high after seeing it. I'm still thinking about it, and I think it's one of those films that will stay on your mind well after watching it. Overall, the Maniac remake blew me away. It's become one of my favorite remakes of recent memory. It's a horror punch in the gut. It's a must-see for all horror fans. I give the Maniac remake a 9 out of 10 stars. If you've seen the Maniac remake, definitely let me know what you think of it. Leave me a comment or video response down below. Hope everyone's doing well. Take care.